Talking about inclusion and diversity. Here we had a case this week, and there's several of these lately, okay? And it's about this lady. They, them, dum, da, dum, dum. I don't know if I'm using the right pronouns. I don't want to be killed because I'm using the wrong pronouns. Anyways, she's a swimmer. They are a swimmer. Them are a swimmer. And beating all the what is it? All the XYs out there. I mean, all the XXs out there. Okay, so all the girls that are XXs, there or a lot of them are protesting. They're saying, "Well, this guy's really a guy that changed his sex just to beat us." And I've been talking about that a little bit here and there. You see a lot of these guy who were guys and they converted to gals, and they're going into female sports and beating the crap out of some of the ladies. Now, there's two arguments to that as far as I'm concerned. One is that I think the girls are right, okay? it, on the one hand, the girls are right, okay? I have to concede that this guy doesn't look like a gal to me, and that's what he looks like now. That's how he won the race. So what can I tell you? It seems unfair to me as well. Now, on the other hand, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Women today, they want equality, right? And so I'm saying forget about sexes. Whenever it comes to sport, let everyone compete against everyone. Doesn't matter, man, women, whatever. Everyone competes against everyone. Basketball, women against men, doesn't matter. Soccer, American football, baseball, whatever you want, ice hockey, women against men, or everybody in there. You want to have a mixed team, whatever. So from that point of view, women should not be complaining, because on the one hand, they want equality, and here they have equality. Okay, that's as equal as it gets. Okay, in fact, not that equal. It would be more equal if men competed against women, but here we have, an idea of what that might look like. Okay, this week we had, or this past week we had Biden talk to Xi, and we had this Zelensky fellow over there in Ukraine, and he talked to Scholz, the German chancellor. And you can see where the war is going. I guess the idea is to isolate Russia every way they can. And but the problem is that Germany has a lot of contacts with Russia, a lot of business, and I guess they're trying to destroy that. And the fact that Zelensky chose Germany to talk to the chancellor directly there, send him a message. All I can say is that apparently one of the targets is Germany. And there was another issue this week, and it was against Swiss banks and also against Nestle, the food company. And the Ukrainians are a little upset that Switzerland is also not cutting ties with Russia. In other words, they from the tongue outwards they say one thing, but what they're doing is something different. Okay, but keep those things in mind. Anyways, we shouldn't worry too much about Ukraine because it looks like COVID is coming back. What is it, the AB2 now? So we got a new strain. I'm not sure. I mean, to me, it's quite weird that we have all these strains so fast, so quickly, and it's like they're moving from one strain to another. A little weird for me. I don't know. I got my doubts on that still. Okay, moving on here, we have another issue. Amazon bought out MGM, and some people, some companies especially, they think it's antitrust. You've got Amazon just growing big and using its money to buy out companies, in fact, traditional ones like MGM, to buy a lot of their movies and be able to have a monopoly over those movies, charge whatever they want. Okay, and so the question is the world moving in the direction of monopoly? Are we getting away more and more from competition, moving into monopoly? And here, let me give you an example of how this is taught in college. Okay, these are just in general terms. Okay, the perfect competition, you have many firms. In the monopoly, you only have one, essentially, right? Identical product in the case of perfect competition, unique product in case of monopoly. Easy to enter or not, no barrier in the case of competition, but when you have a monopoly, your entry is blocked. There's only one guy selling. Take or make a price. Well, the perfect competition is a price taker, and the monopoly is a price maker. They set the price, because no competition, of course. And then the profit max condition, you have the price in one case compared to the other. And you see that in one case it's above and the other one is equal to. And so, you got to look at these parameters to get an idea of whether you have a monopoly or not out there. But my point here is something else. I'm trying to get to something else here. What if we have agricultural monopoly? Okay, and here's a list. Okay, a little bit of a list related to agriculture. Okay, there's essentially 4 agricultural corporations and in the world, and they own over 50% of the global seeds, and they work on them in their labs, and then they patent them, and they're patenting things which are alive, different than a patent for a machine. And here they're patenting things that are alive, okay, which is a seed in this case, and they're saying you can't have it unless you buy it from us, and we'll tell you how to use it, and you can't reuse it. So they have all these issues. Here you have these 4 companies, essentially, right? And their defense is patent law guarantees new inventions. Okay. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any R&D. Nobody would be developing new strains of seeds, whatever, because there would be no incentive. And the incentive is if you can patent it and then make money off of that. Okay. And what they do with that, these companies like these, they limit the farmer's seed use and the variety they can sell. And then again, the seed cannot be reused next year. They have to again buy them from these companies. So this is their business. They keep selling new seeds every year. They're the providers. And you can imagine what that can do to a country, that buys these seeds and then depends on these companies for resupply, because otherwise it triggers the patent law. Okay, and well, the comment there is if he who controls the seed controls the food supply. But what do the farmers say? The smaller farmers, the people who have to buy the seeds from these guys, right? They say it blocks farmers' access to genetic material. That's one issue. And then they also claim that it limits biodiversity. Okay, because what you're doing is essentially crowding out all the natural stuff and just coming out with stuff that's from the labs, and we repeat the thing over and over year after year after year. And what happens with all the other seeds that Mother Nature made? Well, they kind of are crowded out and maybe die out. So we're getting rid of biodiversity. That's one issue. And here are some, one of the numbers there: 75% of global crop varieties vanished in the last century. Big number. Okay. So what can I say? Maybe it's not a good idea what we're doing for the sake of profits. And then we have the issue of transition to the cities. I talked a little bit about that the other day. People are moving from the country to the city because they can no longer compete against the big corporations, against the prices in the country, and so a lot of them, maybe had debts with the banks or whatever, and the banks foreclose on them. And so what's happening is a lot of these people sell their farms, their land, to bigger corporations that start working economies of scale, and again they can lower prices for some time because they have the same fixed costs essentially. They can run the accounting department with fewer people. They don't need all the people that like if they bought out another company, like in the case here of Amazon, right? If you buy another company, well, you don't need to have their accounting merge with yours. You can get rid of people. You can run it with less accountants. And so the especially with the machinery and the programs we have today, I'm not even sure that accountants have any future. But the point here is that they buy out the farmer. The farmer has no other place to go, so he comes to the city. And like I say, when he's in the city, he doesn't reproduce children. I'm talking about kids now, okay? Because in the cities, resources are limited, culture is different, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Marriage is flying out the window. Nobody's getting married anymore. There are no long-term relationships. And so there's a lot of things going on because of this process of big agri-corporations buying out the small farmer. And so all of this has to be taken into consideration, whether, first, if it's good for us in a sense, does it have a future? And then if it conduces to the extinction of man. Okay? Okay, and another subject, if you don't like to live here on Earth because there's no food or you don't like the corporations or whatever, you can always go to outer space, to the moon, maybe to Mars, okay? And here's this Artemis moon rocket, okay, that they're developing, Starship, okay? And they're developing 4 rockets right now. Each one costs 4 billion bucks, quite cheap, okay? And um, they expect, okay, to touch down on the moon with one of these rockets, with the first one in the series in 2025. Okay, that's in 3 years. Okay, uh, a lot of this has to do with being the first to be on the books. Okay, which is nonsense really, but they claim it's the first woman to go to the moon, to step on the moon. She's a black, so she's the first black woman to be on the moon. That's 2 gold medals there, right? I mean, what is this? What do we care about first? Let's get to the moon. Let's do it. But it's like they're in a competition to who's the first, who's going to be on the books first. Okay, and all of this is in preparation to go to Mars in the 2030s. Okay, so will we ever get to Mars? Do we want to go to Mars? Why do we want to go to Mars? And here you see, so we finally send a group of people to Mars, okay? And this is more or less what it looks like, okay? Here it is. And so we send this guy out, okay? These people out. They go to Mars, okay? They land on Mars, hopefully safely, okay? And so they do touchdown, okay? We arrive, and what are we gonna do? Well, what we're gonna do, we're gonna, make a colony, I guess, okay, in there, and we're gonna start working there. Okay, so here you see us now, on Mars. Now we have our little colony. We have all these things that we've sent out there. By the way, this takes a lot of money, a lot of trips to get all this stuff to Mars. It's not like, this is all done in one day. Okay, and so the question is whether this is ever going to happen. I mean, are we going to have all these things on Mars? How much time do we have? How much money do we have? Oh, it's true. Time is money. Okay. So, yeah, the question is this ever going to happen? They're talking about the 2030s. And the question is whether, my issue is whether the global economy is going to collapse way before then. Okay. Now, I mean, a lot of that goes into opinion. Okay. Different people have different perspectives on that issue. All I can tell you, my perspective is I don't think we're ever going to have a colony on Mars. We may make it to Mars with some people there, like touchdown, and then come back and say, hey, we made it. The first, again, gold medal. Okay, we put it on the books. And nothing more than that, if ever we get to Mars. And one of the issues is money. The other one is, to put a station there, to build something out there, you're going to need a lot of trips. Each one costs a lot of money. Now, they plan to lower the costs, they say, over time. That's very likely. The question is whether we're ever going to achieve that goal. And people say, Bill, you're a pessimist. Okay, I drink beer. I can't be a pessimist, okay? Okay, another subject. Fellow says, do you know what government system is rational but doesn't work? Communism. Well, I know a little bit about communism. I've spent all my youth involved in communism. Okay? I don't know why, but it's one of those things you do in your youth, like sex. Also, all you're doing is thinking about girls and so on. And here you're thinking about also how to overthrow the government. Being everybody thinks of himself maybe as an Alexander the Great. I'm going to conquer the world, or lots of people do. Idealists do. I was an idealist, so I get into communism. And the only thing I can tell you about communism today, after I gained my senses a little bit, is that we've never had communism on Earth. So we don't know if it works. Okay? Now, there were communes, small communities. I can give you one that just about everybody knows about. Charles Manson. He had a little commune there and it worked. Worked just fine. Okay, I mean, and you have the kolkhozes in Russia, you have the kibbutzes in Israel, and they seem to be doing fine. I think they have the same organizations in Vietnam and in China and so on. So I'm not sure that communes don't work. This communism, living in community, but on a global scale, it's never been tried. What we have, or what we have today, in fact, and what has always been there since Marx came aboard, is the dictatorship of the proletariat. Okay, that's a little different than communism. That's just what it's called, a dictatorship. And when you have a dictator, we're not all equal. I don't know if that rings a bell, you know? Yeah, so you can't talk about equality when you have a dictatorship of the proletariat. The idea Marx had, and later on Lenin and so on, was that you first introduce the dictatorship of the proletariat so that the workers gain control of their means of production. And that's the first step. But then there's also this education process where you educate the masses, which are ignorant. Remember, we're talking about primarily the 19th century, early 20th century. Lots of people out there were just, especially people who lived in the country, they were ignorant people. And so one of the issues there was you got to educate the people, and that's a process. And a lot of people are going to rebel because you're going to take their property away from them. So you need a dictatorship of the proletariat. Okay, so someone's got to be the dictator, or a group of people has to be the dictators, and the rest have to obey. In that sense, it's no different than capitalism. You got command economy. Okay, supposedly that system should evolve into communism, meaning more or less a world government, until government itself ceases to exist. Anarchy, anarchism, in the good sense of anarchism, not the guy who throws the Molotov cocktail. We're talking about a world without government, okay, where everybody just lives, maybe does their computer stuff and communicates with everybody else, no government. That's the ideal, okay? Now, no one ever made it past the dictatorship of the proletariat. We have good old Kim in one place, we have the Cubans in the other place, Zimbabwe and so on. You have all these places that they claim to have socialism, communism. No, it's called the dictatorship of the proletariat. Let's call it what it is. And it's a dictatorship. Dictatorship, nobody likes it, okay? Except the guys on the top, okay? So do not confuse the ideal communism of the books with the dictatorship of the proletariat, which is what they have in all these so-called communist countries. Okay, so in that sense, you got to distinguish the ideal from the practical, from the pragmatic, what they actually have. Okay, subject of today, which I'm interested in, fellow says, what do you think of the Tanis fossil site? Okay, and in that site, which is the Hell Creek in North Dakota, I think it is, or southern South Dakota, southwest South Dakota, one of the Dakotas. And there's this site, and they found some dino bones. And that whole formation, the Hell Creek Formation, that's all full of T-Rexes and Triceratopses and Hadrosaurs and so on. It's an area rich with fossil bones of that era, of the Cretaceous. Okay, and so he says, well, what do you think about this Tanis site? Well, one of the guys who mined it was this fellow Robert DiPalmo, student who eventually was called in to do the work. And this is what some people have to say about it, some scientists out there, some colleagues of his, okay? And they say that reconstruction of a new species he called Dakotaraptor. He had accidentally included turtle entoplastron armor, right? Fragments in air, taking them to be part of the fossilized Furculum. As a result, some paleontologists felt that he might be prone to overinterpret. Okay, and then also from the Wikipedia says everything appeared to have been laid down in a single flood. So the area that this fellow excavated, essentially, right? It's like they say that when the asteroid, because they're all believing in this asteroid theory, okay, the asteroid hit the Earth, there was such a flood that all this water just flooded the land and threw fish all over the place, and also pushed the big terrestrial dinosaurs aside, etc., drowned them all. And so that's the notion. And so this is the theory that they have, that there was a big flood, and that flood was caused by the asteroid. Okay, and so this fellow is just catering to the establishment, paleontology establishment, which to this day believes that an asteroid caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. Okay, this is the issue. And so this guy's just going to publish things and put everything that he writes in that context. In other words, he's just going to parrot the party line. That's my point. Okay, so what is that party line? Where did all that come from? Okay, well, in 1980, we had this fellow, his name is Alvarez, father and son team, and they put out this paper after studying especially a place in Italy, okay? And there you see the key part of the theory. He calls it a hypothesis because that's what mathematicians call it. No, it's called a theory, an explanation. What's his explanation? He says suggested, which suggested. I like it the fact that he says suggested when he's shoving it down everybody's throat to this day, and everybody else believes in it for the same reason because it's been shoved down everybody's throat. So it's not suggested; it's a done deal. Okay, that's the first thing you got to understand. It says which accounts for the extinctions and the iridium observations. Impact of a large Earth-crossing asteroid would inject about 60 times the object's mass into the atmosphere as pulverized rock. A fraction of this dust would stay in the stratosphere for several years and be distributed worldwide. The resulting darkness would suppress photosynthesis. So what he's saying is, what these folks are saying is that, there was an asteroid hit, pulverized when it hit the Earth, and the dust covered the land, covered the skies for several years, as the theory goes, and there was no photosynthesis, and the plants died, and the animals died. Okay, so it wasn't just the strike; it was also the debris. Okay, 10 years later, that was 1980. 1990s, 1991, I think, they had this. These people, they found this Chicxulub crater in Mexico in the Yucatan Peninsula, and they said that they theorized, okay, and this theory again became proof, evidence, truth, fact, that this is where the asteroid that Alvarez was talking about hit. Okay, it hit in the Yucatan. They found this asteroid and they say, okay, this is the one that caused the problem. And they dated it pretty much to, they fudged with the numbers until they got it right. And they got it to the K-T boundary. And again, they suggested that this had something to do with the extinction of the dinosaurs. So now we had a theory, and now we have another theory that says that or evidence that an asteroid did in fact strike the Earth, and it's over there in the Yucatan Peninsula. Okay, so this is where they stood. 20 years later, we have a team of over, I think, 42 people, and paleontologists, they called them, okay, scientists, okay, and they came out, they went in there and they certified these two theories, okay, they put them together, they said, we've proven it, no more argument, it's a done deal. Okay, here it is, this is the paper, the Chicxulub asteroid impact and mass extinction of the Cretaceous Paleogene boundary, okay, and so they go in there to say that essentially they've proven it and there's no more discussion now. Today we have to accept this theory, and if you have a different theory, well, you got to shove it up your nose holes, okay, because you're not allowed to publish anymore. This is a done deal. They've proven it forever and ever. We know exactly what happened to the dinosaurs, okay. So this is interesting because, you would think that in science, we debate and we put ideas and we come up with the ideas and make the ideas clash. We introduce arguments for why the other guy's theory is wrong or irrational, okay? And we have a debate. But these people say there's no more debate. It's a fact now, okay? And certified by 42 of them, okay? Okay, so what is this notion? And here you see a paper, not a paper really, it's an article that was in the New Yorker, okay? And a couple years ago, it says that this summarizes essentially what the theory says. It says, the dust ensued from the impact and the conflagrations prevented all sunlight from reaching the planet's surface for months. Okay, no sunlight, no photosynthesis, okay? Photosynthesis all but stopped, killing most of the plant life, extinguishing the phytoplankton in the oceans and causing the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere to plummet. After the fires died down, Earth plunged into a period of cold, perhaps even deep freeze. Earth's two essential food chains in the sea and on land collapsed. About 75% of all species went extinct. More than 99.9999999% of all living organisms on Earth died, and the carbon cycle came to a halt. Okay? Earth itself became toxic. When the asteroid struck, it vaporized layers of limestone, releasing into the atmosphere 1 trillion tons of carbon dioxide, 10 billion tons of methane, and 1 billion tons of carbon monoxide. All three were powerful greenhouse gases. Okay? The impact also vaporized anhydrite rock, which blasted 10 trillion tons of sulfur compounds aloft. The sulfur combined with the water to form sulfuric acid, which then fell as acid rain that may have been potent enough to strip the leaves from any surviving plants and to leach the nutrients from the soil. By the way, the acidity of that also killed whatever animals were still alive in the water. Nothing survived. And here you have the movie of it, picture, okay, so you know what this guy was referring to. Here it is, okay. You got the asteroid, it strikes the Earth. Okay, watch what happens to the earth. This is over several months. First, you have the floods and also fires, okay, extending throughout the land. Um, what happens? The whole earth is covered with fire. It's a cinder. Nothing survived. That's the notion that these people have. Okay, so that's what happened. Nothing survived. And the problem I've got with that is that there's another study that took 4 years in the making. Okay, it's known as the Cretaceous Terrestrial Revolution. And I'm just going to show you the graph that came out of that study. And it gives you an idea why we have a contradiction in the establishment. On the one hand, you just saw what happened to the earth. It was turned into a cinder. All plant and animal life died. Okay, I guess God had to come back with his wand and create Adam and Eve all over again in the garden and all that stuff. Okay, but here's the problem. Okay, and here you see it. We show nothing in the record where everything died. Quite the contrary. In the Cretaceous, what you see is the angiosperms. They muscled aside the cycads, the conifers, and eventually took over the land. And that's why we're here, because we eat angiosperms. We do not eat conifers or ferns for that matter. Okay? So never did plant life stop, never did animals stop at least since the beginning of time, you can say, since life was created on Earth. Okay, so the issue here is that there's a contradiction between what this guy just said, that everything died, everything turned to a cinder, and whatever still was alive there, well, it didn't last too long anyways, because either acid rain or something else killed it. All life died on Earth. That's what they're saying, and this graph contradicts all that. So you figure, I mean, you don't have to take my word. The question here is they have a contradiction, and they have to resolve that contradiction. They can't say we proved that the asteroid hit and killed all life, blah 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 blah, because here you see that that couldn't have been true if another study shows that that life was continuous all the way since the Cambrian. Nothing changed. Okay, so it's food for thought. Parallel to that, we have the Neanderthals. Okay, fellow says modern man having no Neanderthal mtDNA, mitochondrial DNA. Okay, just means there is no unbroken maternal line. Okay, remember I talked the other day about the fact that we have no mitochondrial DNA from Neanderthals, meaning we cannot show that we ever had a Neanderthal mother. And then males, human males, right? We have no Y chromosomes from the Neanderthal fathers, meaning that we had males never had fathers, and no one in humanity had mitochondrial mothers that we can show, at least. There's nothing in the record to show that. Okay, and so thus, depending on the initial population and so on, it could be statistically unlikely to have preserved any unbroken line, okay, or to be detected in modern populations. Now, I think this is very unlikely what this fellow is saying. Okay, that's my take on that. Where did all this come from? Well, this came out of a 2010 paper where they did the genome on Neanderthals, okay, 3 Neanderthals more specifically. And this is the paper, a draft sequence of the Neanderthal genome by Pablo Green and their group, a whole bunch of people as well. And there you see right at the bottom what their conclusion is. Essentially, we show that Neanderthals shared more genetic variants with present-day humans in Eurasia than with present-day humans in sub-Saharan Africa, suggesting that gene flow from Neanderthals into the ancestors of non-Africans occurred before the divergence of Eurasian groups from each other. Okay, what's the problem with what Pablo and his team is saying? Well, if you read the paper, this paper, and this was confirmed in subsequent papers as well. Humans. I'm sorry. What is it? New Guineans, Papua New Guineans, and American Indians have more Neanderthal DNA than Europeans. Of course, that's in the fine print in the paper. Why did they put that up there in lights? And I'll tell you why. They couldn't explain that, and besides, that destroyed their theory. That's why they didn't put it up there. But go read the paper that they wrote, they published, and you'll find that Papua New Guineans and American Indians surprisingly have more Neanderthal blood in them than Europeans, which had direct contact, obviously, with the Neanderthals. So you figure that out to see if their method has any validity whatsoever. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, fellow says, accuses me of being pessimistic. He said, your most take on what happens in the world is always grim, pessimistic, and ignorant. Okay, so we have the optimist, the pessimist. Okay, I guess he's saying I'm like the guy in the center. But then we have the realist. And I'm saying I'm not an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. I drink beer. I can't be a pessimist. I drink wine, right? I'm a realist. And it's a little different. See, one thing is to be a pessimist, and another is to be a realist. What am I talking about? Well, here, I'll give you an example, okay? And here you'll see the difference between a pessimist and a realist, okay? The guy takes one step, and I say, poor guy, he's gonna die. Bill, you're such a pessimist. No, it's not a question of pessimism. It's a question that he's gonna fall, and as he falls down, this cliff, he's gonna die. It's just as simple as that. It's got nothing to do with pessimism. It's got to do with realism. Okay, and let me give you another example here. Okay, here we have a door opens, unfortunately, and when this fellow just falls off the plane. And so we're on the airplane looking down, we're seeing him fall. We say, oh, he's going to die. And you say, Bill, you're such a pessimist. Well, no, it's not a question of being pessimistic. I'm realistic. I mean, I guess that's D.B. Cooper there. For those of you who know the case. Yeah, the guy falls off an airplane or falls from a 30-story building, First thing you say, he's dead. He's going to die. And this fellow's saying, Bill, you're such a pessimist. That's it. It's realism, not pessimism, okay? And so what's the issue? Well, here it is. Here's the example for extinction. And I'm saying, the global economy is going to collapse, okay? It's going to crash. But I'm not talking about a recession. I'm not talking about a depression like in the 30s. I'm talking about a total crash, meaning a total collapse, meaning money is no more. Why? Because the global economy, among other things, right? But the global economy cannot grow forever, okay? That's one issue. Can't grow forever in great measure or partly because, population is not increasing at the rate it should be increasing. And then we're not creating jobs. What we're creating now are internet jobs, which are not jobs at all. Internet jobs are unemployment. If you're a programmer, if you're a data entry operator or whatever, you're unemployed. Okay? If you're doing anything on the internet, like me, for example, here, you're unemployed. In my case, I'm retired, but I mean, any work on the internet is no work at all. Especially if you're in the entertainment business, if you sing, you act, or whatever, you put movies, you talk, or whatever. All that is no work at all. And those are the jobs we're creating. So we're not creating jobs. We're not creating people, demand. Okay. We have our population pyramid overturned. Okay. That's got to lead to a collapse of the global economy at some point in time. So it's not that I'm a pessimist. I'm giving you a reason. I'm giving you a realism there. I'm saying, give me an answer to those issues. And then we can debate about something. But to say, Bill, you're just pessimistic. It's not pessimistic. It's a question of being realistic. I'm giving you the causes. Okay. And where do I get those causes? I get them from the past, from the dinos. I'm saying they died because of an economic collapse. So did the Triassic archosaurs, the Permian synapsids, Carboniferous amphibians. All these died for the same reason. Their economy collapsed. What is economy? Management of resources. What resources do animals, do all animals, including humans, manage? Food. That's what we manage. Now, everybody manages it a little different. The ants don't do it the same way we do it. Neither do the lions, neither do the spiders. We all do it a little differently out there. We have, in our world of humans, we do it with money, transactions. Great. The issue is the same. The issue is food. All that money that we have today just goes to keep us alive one more day. Through what? Through food. We eat, we get to live one more day. That's it. That's all there is. And so, again, it's not pessimism. It's got to do with realism, with causes. Okay. Now, if you've got an antidote to them, hey, I'd like to hear it. No problem. But right now, I haven't heard anyone addressing the issues. You have to address the issues. Okay. Okay, another issue here. Fellow says, you state in an earlier video that the problem is cities and economics, and then state that the solution is to build more cities. Well, there you see the main cities, the biggest cities on the planet, okay, and you can put a whole bunch more in between there somewhere. And yeah, we would have a solution to the decline in the growth rate of population if we could put cities there, if we could build new cities. Why? Because you send some young people out there, pioneers, log cabins maybe or whatever, it doesn't matter. And if you build a new city, suddenly that city, the people start having children, and you have schools, and what you have is a boom town. Okay, you could create boom towns throughout the world, and that would create demand. It would increase the economy of the of the world, right? So a solution would be to build more cities. What I'm saying is it's never going to happen. We're not going to build new cities. The cities you see on the planet today, we're going to die with those cities. Okay, some of the smaller ones will become bigger ones. Others maybe will disappear, become ghost towns. But the point here is that we're not going to build new cities. In fact, like I said a minute ago, people are leaving the country for the city, and there's a lot of city folks that are going, to the suburbs or away from the hustle and bustle of the city because they want a tranquil life, so they move to the country, not exactly to the country, but the villages, to less populated regions. But we're not going to build new cities like in the middle of nowhere, like in the middle of the of Siberia, or in the middle of Patagonia in Argentina, or in Brazil, in the jungles of Brazil. That's not going to happen. There's no way a government can do that. There's no way a government even intends to do that. They don't care about that. They're worried with other stuff. They're not concerned about creating a new city. And so, yeah, the solution to some degree, to some extent, would be to create new cities, but it's never going to happen. So it's a moot point anyways. Okay. Okay, final point here. We have what? We have a flat earther. It says, you need to look into the flat earth more and give it a better chance. What's the issue? The issue is flat earth, just like the electric universe, they cannot explain gravity. That's the issue. You cannot explain gravity. In fact, quantum mechanics, general relativity, string theory, none of those can explain gravity either. If you want to explain gravity, you have to put some objects in there, some things to mediate the action at a distance. Without a thing, you have nothing. Okay? So you cannot explain gravity. You cannot explain why, this pencil falls to the ground. Why does it fall to the ground? What caused it to fall to the ground? What came in contact with the skin of the pencil? And I don't care if you want to talk about something pushing it or something pulling it. No problem. But it had better be a physical object. Something came in contact with a pen, with a pencil, that you cannot see or touch. You cannot see or touch the thing that came in contact with the pencil. And you say there's nothing there. Why? Because the definition of the word object is not that which you can see or touch. It's that which has shape. Whatever's here has shape, but you cannot see or touch it. That's the argument. Okay? So the issue is that, yeah, if you want to explain gravity, you need to have something mediate gravity. Gravity is a concept. We want to know why, for example, water curves around the earth, why air curves around the earth, spherical earth. Okay? Why? Because every atom, like you see there, every atom that forms the air and the water, the oceans, they're all bound to every atom on earth. Every atom on earth, even of your body, is bound to every atom on earth. So every atom in your body right now is bound to every atom in my body. But I can't see or touch it. That's not the definition of an object, of a thing. Definition is that which has shape. The thing that binds us has shape, but you cannot see or touch it. Okay? That's the rationale. Okay? Why do you think it's see-touch? Well, you got to address that issue first. You got to fight that definition first. So the only way to produce curvature of water, the only way to produce curvature of air around the earth is if every atom of water, every atom that comprises the air, is bound to all atoms on earth, including other atoms of water, other atoms of air. Okay? So here's what anyone who wants to explain gravity has to do. This is a requirement. So if you got a theory of gravity, great, bring it in. But before you bring it in, you have to check that that meets these two conditions. Okay? You can't do it without these two conditions. These are the two things you have to explain. If you cannot explain this, you don't have a theory of gravity. Okay, we got that? Okay, here it is. Comes from Richard Muller, UC Berkeley. Okay, I guess he's got to know something about gravity. Studied it all his life. He teaches it. Okay, or did. I think he's retired now. Says, for example, if you have the Earth, there's a big mass here, and you have you with your little mass here. Every atom on Earth is pulling on every atom of you. You're also pulling on it. Then the second thing you have to answer is, the amazing thing about gravity is that it goes right through things. Any person trying to explain gravity in a mechanistic way. Anyone who wants to explain why that pencil falls to the ground has to explain these two things. In other words, has to factor these two things in his theory. How it's possible that every atom of you is connected to every atom on Earth, and how it is that gravity goes right through things. Without that, you do not have a theory. Okay? You do not have a mechanism for gravity. So flat earthers, don't tell me the earth is flat. Don't tell me that I can't curve water around. Yes, I can. I can curve water. I can curve air. Very simple. Every atom in the atmosphere is tied to every atom on earth. We're done. It's got to be spherical. It better be spherical. It can't be squarish, cubic, triangular, pyramidal, or whatever. It's got to be spherical. That's why just about all celestial objects are spherical, including the earth.